Vážené dámy, vážení pánové, vážené
Ladies and
kolegyně,
gentlemen, dear
vážení
colleagues,
kolegové, vážení partneři,
dear partners,
milí absolventky, milí absolventi,
dear graduates, dear students,
a takhle bych mohl pokračovat
and I could
velmi
continue
dlouho,
for a long
protože to
time,
dokládá, jak pestrou tady máme
because
společnost.
there are many
všechny
parties,
vás
many different
vítám
participants today.
na
Be
akci,
welcome
která se
today
jmenuje
to our event
Zelená
called
budoucnost.
Green Future.
Ještě k tomu maličkému slovíčku se dostaneme.
And there is also one short
Nesmím
preposition,
také
I will comment it
pozdravit
later. I would like to welcome also people sitting somewhere here online that are listening to us through our online channels. We had to solve some technical problems, but it's done. Why green?
No, my jsme už od samého začátku
From the beginning,
charakterizováni zelenou barvou.
our faculty has a green color. That's why
Nám se
we have chosen this name.
zelení heslo 30 let založení fakulty. Omlouvám se, řekne pan děkan.
We have chosen also green as a color typical for our faculty, and green should be also the future, and we will discuss the green future today. So thank you very much that you came, and I would like to ask our dean to open our event today.
Jarda už všechno řekl.
Jaroslav has already said everything. I prepared my speech, but he said everything. Be welcome here. I am very happy that there are so many people today. I'm very happy that you registered and that you came. It's for me very good because I can see that we are an important part of the university in Liberci. I would like to welcome also people from other faculties. There are also colleagues from abroad. So our faculty has good connections with
také několik našich partnerů a kolegů, jak z veřejné zprávy, tak z komerční sféry. Myslím si, že se nám podařilo daří také naší aplikovat v praxi. To, že jsou tady naši studenti a absolventi, doufám, znamená, že se nám to zapsat nejenom do myslí, ale také do srdcí našich absolventů.
already left the faculty come back, and there are also many colleagues who work here and who worked here in the past years. I'm very happy that in the last 30 years we did a lot of good work, and I am very grateful to all of you. In 1992, when there was a team with Mr. Jágr as a leader, they founded the Faculty of Economics of the Technical University in Liberec. It was a very big change in the society, very big change in the university. First, the Soviet Union disintegrated, then Czechoslovakia disintegrated. There was a new European Union. Simpsons were very popular, so it was a very hectic period. After 30 years, it seems to me that we came to a period of change again, the turning point. First the pandemic, then Karel Gott died, Hanka Zagorová died, now the Queen Elizabeth, the war in Ukraine, Russian mobilization. All the events show us that we live in a very hectic period that is important for the history, and I hope that our future will be really green. Jarda said that the green is connected with the color of our faculty. I'm very happy for it, because green is a color of spring, of hope, of plants, of creative environment. I would like to connect all these things with the Faculty of Economics. And I would like to do all I can to make our future as green as possible. Now I would like to welcome here the Associate Professor of Charles University in Prague, my long-term colleague and friend, and it's Michal Žák. Welcome here.
Dobré odpoledne.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for nice words. Thank you for the invitation. My task today is to say something about the time or crossroad we are living now. Maybe it's crossroad, maybe it's crisis. That's why we called this, my contribution I called climate crisis and what will come next. I come from the Department of Physics of Atmosphere. We deal with this topic for a long time. Maybe we have studied this topic for 30 years. Although this topic was not 30 years ago, this topic was not so important in the public space, but now it is very popular and very important also for the public space, and everyone has to face this topic today. So I would like to discuss some details of our current situation, of the reasons of the current situation and of our future. When you see my pictures, the pictures are not as green as I would wish, but maybe it could be a motivation for us that we could work on the green color more for the future. When you say climate crisis, then maybe 8 or 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, then my colleagues said, oh, it's not a good name because we said a climate cannot be in crisis, but then we decided that we should accept it. It's not a crisis of the climate, it's crisis of us. The changes we are experiencing now have very high impact on human society, so we can speak about the crisis. And the effects are connected with more and more humanitarian impact and financial impact on our society. So we experience something that is unprecedented in human history. We live in a very exceptional situation, and the situation is quite negative. When we say climate change, it's a topic that is very broadly discussed today. And when we say climate change, it's an anthropogenic climate change because the climate changed many times when we see the history of the planet. And there are different reasons for the change, but in the current situation we can say that human civilization is the reason why the climate changes so much. So we should say it's an anthropogenic climate change. But we prefer shorter term, so we do not say anthropogenic climate change, we say just climate change. But we focus on climate change caused by human society, by our activities. We influence the climate and atmosphere on a very high level. I show you some pictures. You can see some connection with the climate change.
Samozřejmě tam ty dopady, těm se dostaneme později. Ta souvislost s živočišnou výrobou
have animals and we reduce the amount of wood on the planet. we have agriculture that influences climate, and also the means of transport. We discuss very often airplanes and cars, but there are also the ships, large ships in oceans that produces a really high level of emissions. When you speak about the reasons of the climate change, it's obvious, not by 100%, but it's connected very much with emissions of gases and with carbon dioxide, of greenhouse gases. So there is high correlation of amount of increase of carbon dioxide and increase of in temperature. The concentration is written in ppm, so concentration in a million parts of particles, and it's a very good way how to show the amount.
Nástupem průmyslové revoluce v 19. století bylo nějakých 280 ppm. V současnosti jsme už překročili v podstatě hranici 420 ppm.
Now more than 420 ppm.
Máme
That's why the temperature increases in a significant way. There are some pictures showing us the average temperature on all planet. It's average temperature on the surface of the planet. You can see the years here. In the beginning, the average temperature was lower, and it was 0 degrees. But when we come to the end of the last century, we can see a significant increase, and the deviation is much higher. You can see the red color, and in the last 10 years, we can see only red color, and the deviations are higher than 1 degree Celsius. In the global average, 1 degree Celsius is a very significant increase, and the speed of the change is alarming. Maybe 5 or 4 years ago, these nice pictures made. It's called warming stripes. You can see the temperatures in each year that were measured on the surface of the planet. Dark blue is colder, and dark red is warmer. If nothing happened, the color should be stable. It should be not very dark and not very dark blue or dark red. But the trend is different. Here you can see the picture for the Czech Republic. The variations are a little bit different because it's just a small area.
Tady tenhle ten rok, který je tady v těch 90. letech,
there is only 1996. There is only one blue year. It was the last really cold summer in last 30 years. When we would like to see a longer context, it's from the beginning of so last 2,000 years. So we are at the right side of the picture, so you can see the dramatic change in the last 50 or 60 years. And last picture shows that the warming is global. you can see the average temperatures in 5 years, and when you see the last years of the 20th century, you will see more yellow and red color, and after year 2000, the planet will be red or orange. But I would like to say that there are still some areas in the northwest of Atlantic Ocean where the warming is not so rapid, not so fast, but the global warming is very fast, and the trend is clearly visible. July of year 2022 was very warm, and it's more than 4. Is here someone who was born in 1985? Yes, it was the last month when the average temperature on the planet was under the average temperature of the 20th century. After 1985, every month was warmer than the average temperature of the 20th century, and the deviations in the last year are really very high. So we experienced very warm years. The years 2014 to 2021, it was 8 very warm years, the most warm years since the beginning of the measuring. And this year, we all experienced really high temperature and with record-breaking temperatures in France, more than 40 degrees centigrade. In Japan, you remember the heat wave in Great Britain in July, more than 40 degrees Celsius. So we were really surprised by these temperatures. And interesting thing, I don't know if you noticed, it was maybe 15 days ago, the highest temperature in Sacramento, in California. It was the highest temperature measured in all the history of measurement, but it's in September, so we could expect autumn, but the temperature was really exceptional. But we have warmer and warmer climate, but we experience also record-breaking low temperature. Here you can see New Zealand in June of this year. And many people could say here, but we had very warm summer in the Czech Republic, but now we have very cold week. But maybe today it's a little bit warmer, but last week was very cold. Here you can see the deviations of temperatures in the first 2 weeks in September. It was much colder in East Europe, but you can see that in Greenland the September was really very warm, 10 or 15 degrees Celsius above the average temperature. The year today in Europe, it was the warmest summer in the history of the measurement, and the second warmest was the summer of 2021. Just a small comparison, the deviation in temperature in last 30 years. The last 30 years were very warm, but now in 2022 the temperature was even higher by 3 degrees above the long-term average. It is quite exceptional. In Spain, they even named one of the heat waves. We name hurricanes, for example. Now we have Fiona hurricane in the Atlantic. They called the heat wave Zoe. It was in the middle of the summer. Just an example, first 8 months of this year, from January to August, the average temperature in Europe was above the average. Interesting was the precipitation. The precipitation level was quite low, but in central areas of the Czech Republic, Prague, South Bohemia, the precipitation level in the first 8 months of this year, the level was higher than average. But in other areas, the average level, the precipitation was quite low. Many rivers in Europe were almost dry. We have dry rivers. It's very alarming. It's an alarming situation because the water in the rivers is for many purposes. It's not only bad for fishing industry or for ships, but we have no then water to cool the nuclear plants. We didn't experience such a drought in Czech Republic, so we didn't have to limit the water supplies for the industry. But Czech industry depends on water. We have a lot of chemical industry, but maybe we could experience such a situation in the future, maybe in next 2 decades. So because of not enough water in the rivers, the Czech industry could be limited.
Another interesting thing happened in the Alps in the beginning of July in 22. You remember the marmalade and the slide that a lot of people died there. So what looked quite safe for many tens of years now changed into a dangerous thing that is quite dangerous and can be tragic. So we can say that much more often in the changing climate, things that look impossible can actually happen in the end. When we focus on the Czech Republic, we have a shorter space, so the changes are more, the limits can be visible more in a bigger scale. So there are some periods of time when the temperatures can be higher, like in winter or in summer. And then we have other periods of time where the warming isn't so dramatic. For example, in spring, we are sorry to say that the transient periods are disappearing because we have winter and then we have summer again. It's good to realize when the average temperature goes up that there will be more extremes and there will be more oftens. When we are moving into the era with higher temperatures, we have more very high temperatures, more heat waves, but sometimes also we can see some record-breaking low temperatures. So we can have some very cold days in September as well, which can unfortunately harm some of the agriculture products. When speaking about the heat waves, this is the topic that resonates quite often with the global warming. It's you can see at this picture the count of tropical days in the Czech Republic, how it goes up. you can see that in the 60s, 70s, the tropical days were quite unique. But if you look further, nowadays the situations without tropical days we cannot imagine. For example, today in southern Moravia, for example, there was about 30 tropical days. But even before, we have had many summers like that. For example, in 2015. In 2061 to 2000, there was on average 13 tropical days. Nowadays, we have 20 to 30 tropical days on average. It's very, very dramatic if you compare it with the last decades. We haven't actually had anything like that in Czech Republic, what they had in British Columbia in the recent years. The record they had a few years ago was the most extreme heat wave. There were a lot of casualties, and from the climatic point of view, or the statistic point of view, it was a non-precedented event. So things that look very unlikely can actually happen, and this will happen in the future again. Until last June, I would say you would win a jackpot rather than for this event to happen, but it did. If we take the highest temperature in the Czech Republic, 40.40 in Dobřichovice, imagine that one day we have 40.6 degrees Celsius, next day 40.1, and the third day 40.3. It's hard to imagine, but in Canada they did have that. Afterwards they had fires, and 5 months later they had floods. This year, in September, they experienced the highest average temperature in September. In the United States, for example, in Oregon, the heat wave had resulted in the fact that they had let people to go into spaces that had that were climatized, because they have a lot of places like that, but because of the heat waves, these spaces were open to the public, the air-conditioned places. When the heat is high and the humidity is also high, to be in such surroundings without air conditioning means death for a person. So the real numbers of some temperatures in Southeast Asia or Asia have actually surpassed the critical temperatures when you actually cannot survive. How can change the frequency of the tropical days when the temperature rises up in 1 degree Celsius. If you raise the temperature in 1.5 Celsius, we are more likely, four times more likely to have the heat waves or the tropical days. We will reach this point sometimes in the next 1 or 2 decades. When do we reach the warming? It will probably be in the first half of the first 50 years. We have the change of temperature. In the first picture, we can see when the temperature changes in 1.5 temperatures Celsius, then 2.20 temperatures Celsius, and the last one is for 4 Celsius. In the night, the temperature rises or goes down much higher. So if we move to the summer,
in summer we will have many nights that will be warmer than 20 degrees Celsius, so our sleep will be not as good as we would wish for most of us. The warmth, maybe 90% of the warmth is caused by increase of greenhouse gases, and it's not deposited in the atmosphere, but it's deposited in the oceans. So the water of the oceans is warmer and warmer. You can see the development here. It's clearly visible that maybe in last 40 years the warmth deposited in oceans is higher and higher. The amount of warmth deposited in the ocean in last year was the highest one in the history, which was also unprecedented. So the speed of the warming is maybe we could say that in last 20 years, every second 5 nuclear bombs of Hiroshima would explode. It would release 63 billions of joules. So that's the amount of warmth deposited in the oceans. So we can see that it's really alarming amount.
Množství energie naprosto nepředstavitelných z běžného lidského pohledu se jedná. Jaké jsou ty důsledky oteplování oceánu?
So now the effects. So our oceans are getting warmer and warmer. It has many negative effects. So we have higher and higher level of the ocean water. Nowadays it's 4 millimeters annually, but the speed will increase. And I would like to say that it's the average temperature level on the globe. So in some areas it's faster and in some areas it's slower. The warming causes higher erosion of the coasts. We have also floods and hurricanes and dying coral reefs. You can see the effect of higher temperature of the water that causes then thunderstorms and floods. This is last week in Italy. There were exceptional devastating floods. Some with some casualties. The coral reefs, the effect is very negative because more and more coral reefs are dying. You can see some numbers here. And if the trend will be as it is today, then most coral reefs will die. the drought today, this year, we didn't have such a high drought today, but in Slovakia, they had a really very low precipitation. It was maybe one of the driest period in their history. With dramatic effects. Now the prediction for the future, when we increase the temperature, you can see here the average drought in 10 years. You can see that the Mediterranean and North Africa and these are areas that will be negatively affected with agriculture that is negatively affected, and also with fires. Precipitation, extreme precipitation, when the atmosphere will be 1 degree Celsius warmer, then there will be 7% more of air humidity, and we can expect extreme precipitation. Maybe last year in China we had extreme precipitation, and in the future we can say that the extremes above the continents will be more often experienced than above the oceans. We have also extreme wind.
Což je vlastně ten vítr ve spojení s těmi našimi cyklónami.
Extreme wind, it can mean cyclone, you can see video. Many strong winds will be in winter, and we can expect more cyclones in winter time. And then in English, the period of the year could be called not winter but winter. It's with more wind. The videos can see funny, but it's not so funny because it can damage the property and also hurt people. Here are some hurricanes or cyclones. It's not so frequent in the Czech Republic, but the highest risk is that there will be stronger and stronger tropical cyclones. And the strong cyclones will be also longer lasting. There will be also slower, and they will stay above the region for a longer time with a higher precipitation level, maybe 1,000 millimeters, as we could see in Texas. And then thunderstorms. It's in the Czech Republic quite current. When we say supercella, I don't know if you heard the word. You can see it in last years very often. Supercell, maybe 10 years ago, most of you, we wouldn't understand the meaning, but now when we say supercell, we know the conditions that can cause a supercell, then can cause a really devastating thunderstorms. I would like to mention last year tornado in South Moravia. We have good records because some people were able to record the tornado. And I'm very happy that people who filmed this tornado were not hurt. We know that some people were killed, but these people who made the videos were not hurt. So there will be also more tornadoes, but the future will be complicated. These events are very small, and they need a very complex conditions to be created. So in general, we cannot say that the climate change would cause more tornadoes in our republic. So maybe that's one positive thing I can say today. There are not so many. So we have more extreme events, and we have to think about mitigation and about adaptation. Maybe you know the words. Adaptation, we should adapt, we should make some water reservoirs, make cities cooler. Mitigation maybe will be discussed during the panel today. I think that the most important thing, my point is saving. So every ton of coal that we don't burn is very important, but we love our comfort, so we love our good living, good life, so I don't know if we can change it. There is a global agreement to decrease the carbon dioxide emission, and so the temperature, the goal is the temperature increase less than 2 degrees Celsius. The ideal goal would be even lower, but here you can see that most countries are really insufficient in meeting the goals of the deal.
Tady to možná můžeme přeskočit a jenom taková ta trošku, řekněme, sebekritika lidstva.
So now something some critical words. Toward the human civilization, we say, okay, we will decrease the emissions of carbon dioxide, but you can see that the level is still increasing. Maybe the increase is really very fast. The only decrease was caused by the pandemic, and when the pandemic stopped, the emissions, the carbon dioxide emissions increase again. Here is also methane, also at extreme levels. Why should we limit the emissions now?
We're getting closer to the point of breakage, turning point, where the balance can be broken. So we are putting more and more into the fire. And we don't know when the big fire starts and when the system breaks, and we cannot put it to where it was before. To the end, I would like to show what Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, has stated. The floods, droughts, heat waves, extreme storms, and wildfires are going from bad to worse. There's nothing natural about the new scale of these disasters. There are prices of humanity's fossil fuel addictions. So our Earth is changing into a territory with unprecedented disasters, and all the extremes mean higher economic impacts. As for mitigation of the CO2, we can just say that our political presentation has let us down, and we are about 20 years backwards around Croatia or Hungary, maybe north of Italy. So thank you very much, and I will be looking forward to the discussion. Thank you to Mr. Žák. Take a deep breath and give us some questions. Do we have a question over there? Mr. Schedelbauer? Professor Schedelbauer? Good afternoon. My name is Professor Schedelbauer from the Chemistry Department. Thank you for your visit. It was like looking at different records, and one can look at it as a very transforming area. And for me, myself, I don't want any more record-breaking temperatures or any other records. I hope most of the people have it like this. I hope that because we have changed our thinking from if we compare it 30, 20 years ago when we knew all the informations, now we have at least changed our thinking. So I will not talk about why we have slept in, but about mitigation and adaptation. It's not just a question of the political elite. It's what the people themselves want, not just the political entities, but the people and companies, economic partners. This is also the commitment and responsibility of the businesses. So we need to speed up the responsibility of the business entities, and we have to be further in the mitigation and adaptation steps. So I don't really have a question. I would like to just say to support you in what you say, because we analyze all the data very carefully. Today we have no debate about if it exists or not. Well, really, not really, no. Yes, but we actually want to concentrate on what do we have to do to help to get further. We don't have a question, but there's a question in the air, what to do about it. That's why we have gathered today. Thank you. Good afternoon. You have scared me. We are in for a heat wave. I have found out on the internet about the water circle on the planet, and it looked like the water is disappearing somewhere at the end of the water circle. Do you know something about it? If it's a cycle of the water, it cannot disappear. It has to stay somewhere. At least it stays in the atmosphere as the water vapor. Then we have to see at the temperature what the temperature will be, because then the water from the temperature will become water. So now the temperature is higher. It is leading to the more intense water precipitations. So we could see that there could be more water in the atmosphere, so there will be more cloudy weather. And then we could say that there might be more
So the water shouldn't be disappearing. The water should stay in the atmosphere. So the water turns into water vapor, and then in form of rain comes down. So water it stays in the atmosphere. I am Mr. Březina from the Faculty of Mechatronics. It will not be questioned to you, but maybe some of the panelists could answer my question. I think that the industry, because we are here at the Faculty of Economics, the industry works on principles of economics that we have here, and maybe we cannot see the value of externalities. We just use the resources, but we do not see their value. I think that this is the key point, the critical point. We have to change it, because if we do not change it, then we could not change anything. So sorry, I didn't hear any. Okay, it's not a question. It was just a comment. So the panelists are here, so please remember the question, and you can, the comment, you can answer it then. My name is Jitka Borešova, I am from the Faculty of Economics. I have a question. Many politicians in the Czech Republic and abroad say that there is no global warming, or that it's not caused by the greenhouse gases, but that is caused by natural processes. I would. How can you say, or how can you prove that it's caused by humans? I am quite optimistic. I think most of these politicians are retired now. But they still comment things in the public space and influence the public space. If I had time and you were interested, we can speak about uncertainties in climate modeling. We have many uncertain points, but it's a little bit different topic. I think these people are it's a little bit ignorant. The changes that we see is quite visible, and these politicians you mentioned are very often connected with economy, with business. And I always thought that we should be very careful, and when we see that the global temperature increases by 1 degree Celsius, then it's good to make some steps, because it's cheaper than to face the effects of the change. Of course, we cannot see it in 1 or 2 years, but when we see long-term period, maybe 10 or 20 years, the time is passing really quickly, and it will be more and more expensive to face these changes. And it can get really and really expensive. So I think also the business could understand it in such a way. It could be also an opportunity for new projects, new business opportunities. Maybe you know more things about it. The time is, we are running out of time. When there was a climate meeting in Copenhagen, maybe 12 years ago, I went there with Mrs. Langerova as a representative of Czech Republic, and there were some pop stars that had to interpret the climate change to young people. I met Backstreet Boys there, and I asked the question. I asked her, okay, what would you say to the Czech president? And they would say, okay, we would take the Czech president to Florida, and we would show him the change in the landscape, and it could change his approach. Good afternoon. My name is Jakubec. I am not a member of any faculty. I am a graduate. I have a question, and I don't know if it's a question. It should be answered by you or by the panelists. We are dependent on fossil fuels. Is there anything that could be as efficient as fossil fuels that we could use instead of them?
I'm afraid that for this. There's not really anything that comes into my mind as miracles, as uranium, maybe. Yes, uranium is not a bad thing, but globally it's not used as much yet. I have nothing against nuclear energy, but we don't have some means to ask people to be okay with having a plant built next to where they live. So I can see that some of the politicians and elites have failed in this respect. They say, okay, we can do it, but do it somewhere else. Don't build it here. Please let the nuclear raw material be built somewhere else, not here by Liberec. Maybe somewhere near to Česká Lípa. Why Česká Lípa exactly? Okay, do it at similar surroundings. Sorry, one thing is the renewable bioresources. That's another thing. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask if you
I would like to ask if you also focus on influence of volcanic activity. What's the percentage of influence on the global warming? Yes, we focus also on volcanic activity. Yeah, so it's included in our models, but if there is one big eruption in, for example, 1991, then in the long-term models we cannot include it in our models because we never know when it happens. But on the other side, we can easily make an experiment. What happens when there will be a very strong volcanic eruption? For example, Tambora in 1815, the global temperature would decrease, maybe for few years, but after the aerosols and the dust get out of the atmosphere, we would come to the same average temperature. Of course, in the transient period, the effects on human society could be negative, but maybe it's 7 or 8 years. It's not a long-term effect. And then, and the decrease of temperature would be the lowest, maybe on a tropical island where you could fish and survive. Maybe last question. Petr Pliška, I have a question. I personally see the meteorologic events as interconnected. but we discuss it here in the Czech Republic, but I think Czech Republic is really a small region on the earth. But could you say in last years, what's the percentage of European Union on the amount of greenhouse gases causing the global warming? So Europe causes 10% of global emissions. That's one thing. Second thing, we should look on the history. When Europe, including the Czechoslovakia, we were a real industrial area with heavy industry and with high emission level. So the carbon dioxide we have now in the atmosphere was caused by the heavy industry in Europe, and it will stay there maybe 100, 200 years. So when we include also the historical perspective, the impact is much higher and our historical responsibility is much higher. So nowadays our impact is quite low, but in the past, maybe in the 80s, in 1980 it was really, really different. So we should see it in a cumulative way.
Takový to na vlastním tom písečku, že jo? Ono se to těžko jako dělá, když není nějaká vůle se domluvit globálně, OSN a tak dále, to je prostě problém, ale...
I know that it's quite complicated to make a deal globally on the level of United Nations, but when we buy things here and we use things here, the things are not produced here, but maybe in Bangladesh, in China, in Far East. So the emissions are in Far East, but we use the products. So it's also our responsibility, and we close eyes quite often. I see that the situation is quite complicated, and that the international agreements are quite difficult to make, and money is quite strong argument. So thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Žák. I expect many questions then for our panel discussion. So now we will have a break, 30 minutes, and we will start with our panelists. And so please come in 30 minutes back.